Hello, everybody. I am Drew Duncan, and this is the Sync 57 Sports Show, where sports lives 365-7. Don't forget, we are wherever you are listening to podcasts. Simply tell your device to play Drew Duncan, Sync 57 Sports for Google Podcasts, iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Deezer, etc. We are just about everywhere you are listening to podcasts. All right, a couple of things to get to today. We're going to be discussing a little bit of Antonio Brown and the alleged snap that he sent out to the world. And we're going to be talking about the Miami Hurricanes football. You want to know how bad Miami Hurricanes football is? You could take a look at this one particular situation off the rip, and that will just about sum it all up, man. It will just about sum it all up. And, of course, we're going to be diving a little bit into the CFP with a huge college football weekend coming up. Little NFL. Let's get right into it. All right. First of all, apparently, Mark Cristobal had to go ahead and go on Twitter and respond to criticism that has been happening on Twitter. A lot of parents have been getting upset, wondering why their kids aren't getting playing time. He said, quote, "A parent is free and welcome to come pick up their son if they're not happy with their playing time." End quote. That just reminds me of high school level football, my man. High school level football, the fact that he even felt the need to address it, the question was asked, whatever the case may be, the fact that he just didn't say, we're not going to talk about that, let it go. The very fact that he felt the need to go ahead and say something kind of tells me all I need to know. Right? At the high school level, this kind of stuff happens. And most football coaches at the beginning of the season will send out a pre-notification. That email or text or whatever it is will say something to the effect of, if you are not happy with your kid's playing time, he can see his position coach to see where he can improve. If that doesn't work, then he can go to his offensive or defensive coordinator, see where he can improve, or special teams coordinator. If that doesn't work, then he may come to me and I will explain to him why he is not getting more playing time. That's pretty standard stuff at the high school level. This is the D1 collegiate level, where kids are noticed a lot more often in most cases than they are at other universities. Even though we have seen HBUs and small school kids come up, Shannon Sharp, obviously a notable name, Jerry Rice, obviously a notable name, et cetera, et cetera. But the point of what I'm talking about here, Joe Flacco would be another one. I mean, come on, Delaware. The point of what I'm discussing here is this is stuff that happens at the high school level. Parents complain, why isn't my kid playing more for whatever reason? My kid should be getting more playing time for whatever reason. This is stuff we see at the Pee-wees, People walking up to coaches, hey, man, my kid's been working really hard this season. Can he get some more playing time? My pop never did that. If I didn't get playing time, it's because I was playing like hell. That's why. Although I will confess, I was always a starter, but humble brag. But, the point of what I'm saying is this. You have to understand that Miami football is so bad that parents are upset that their 20 and 21-year-old kids aren't getting more playing time. And one of the things I think about is what's going to happen when they're in the real world. They've been working there for 3 months. Why haven't they been promoted yet? I'll tell you why. Because little Johnny's only been here for 3 months, and to be honest with you, he calls into work 2 out of the 5 days of the week. We're just going to keep it real. He's phoning it in, man. To me, it's really the fault of both the parents and the coach. The coach shouldn't need to address this type of stuff. Not at this level. Isn't college where you learn to go and grow as a person and learn to be yourself and responsible on your own? I mean, it's something that is kind of basic when it comes to college. Like, it's common sense that the reason why these kids leave the homes and they go to states that are way, way far away. I mean, come on, I have done, Lyft and Uber driving in my lifetime. And I've had conversations with people where they're from Texas and they could have gone somewhere close like SMU or Baylor or whatever the case may be. And they're just like, hey, look, man, I really just wanted to go somewhere out of state. I wanted to get completely away and really learn and discover myself. So that's how I ended up at XYZ University. It's what happens with a lot of football players. Now, I understand that a lot of football players go to places that they don't necessarily want to go to. The coercion of people around them, the NIL deals are coming in now. All those types of things are beginning to take shape. They've always kind of taken shape. But the point of what I'm saying is when you have the helicopter parent, it's not helping anybody. It's not helping anything. And the fact that people think that they could do this at the University of Miami tells you that this is clearly not the football team that was basically from 1983 to about 2003. The dynasty that Howard Schnellenberger started there in Miami spanned decades, literal decades. We're not seeing that right now. Forget about all the NCAA fractions and things that they've been hemmed up on. Forget about all that stuff, man. Let's just take that out of the equation and realize that this football team is so bad that parents are all over social media going, why isn't my kid getting more playing time? They could help you win a football game. But that kid obviously isn't even good enough or really showing signs of wanting to play all that much or any improvement whatsoever. And now the coach has to go on national media and say, look, hey, come grab him. We'll scholarship somebody else around here. Whew. That's a bad look, bro. That is so high school level stuff, man. Pee-wee level stuff. I wouldn't even address it. If somebody asked me that question, I'd be like, bro, move on. We're not talking about that. That's high school level stuff. There's not a parent on planet Earth who doesn't think their kid doesn't deserve more playing time. Get out of my face with that. I wouldn't address it on Twitter. I wouldn't talk about it on Instagram. I wouldn't make a 6-second Vine video. Anybody remember that? I wouldn't do a 1 minute on TikTok. I wouldn't give anybody the time of day. But Mark Cristobal's like, yo, check game. Nah, bro. No. I would let that go. Period. All right, moving on. CFP college football rankings are going to be coming out tonight. And, I think it's pretty clear where this is going to end up. Despite TCU and Michigan barely skating by, I think that they're going to be still in the top 4. I've always said that I am not a proponent of any one conference. I do believe that, just because you are undefeated doesn't mean that you're as good as your record suggests. But I do believe that if you finish the season undefeated, absolutely you should get a shot. I don't care if you're Wyoming, Boise State, TCU, Ohio State, Bama, whomever. If you finish the year undefeated, I think it should be a given that you at least get a shot. You did what you were supposed to do throughout the season. We always talk about the schedule of teams like a Wyoming or a Cincinnati, but we're not always willing to necessarily discuss the schedule of a Michigan who didn't play anybody out of conference that was worth anything, a TCU who didn't play anybody out of conference that was worth anything, had a hard time with SMU, talked about it ad nauseum. The point of what I'm saying is if you do the work, you go undefeated, you get a shot, period. And being that these are all Power 5 schools that are undefeated, they're going to get their opportunity. Now, obviously, there still could be a little bit of a shakeup, right? Michigan's going to play Ohio State this weekend. So one of those two teams are probably going to be out by default. USC with a slim chance. They've got Notre Dame coming up this weekend. Notre Dame, the one team that has beat Clemson. Ohio State's win, though it wasn't pretty over Notre Dame, continues to look better and better and better as the season has progressed. We were discussing a lot of different things with Notre Dame about how bad it was for a long time, and now we're saying, well, maybe that win wasn't as bad as we thought. We don't know yet. I think that Notre Dame USC could be a hell of a football game this coming weekend. So USC with a slight chance, only one loss. If they beat Notre Dame, it still looks really good for them. And if they go and win a Pac-12 championship, they could find themselves in there. Now, obviously, Clemson is sort of in the same boat. One loss, a really ugly loss, though, to Notre Dame. And they just skate by against Syracuse, a football team that started out 6-0 and has yet to win since then. And so Clemson not really looking good. North Carolina, another team that I knew wasn't going to do more than what people suggested in the ACC. Appalachian State at the beginning of the year, right? Then they take another really bad loss this past weekend. So now it's not looking good. So now Clemson has to start scoring style points. They have to start winning games by 40, and I'm not even kidding. If they want a chance at this thing with one loss as an ACC champion, they are going to have to score style points. It is very conceivable at this juncture that a 2-loss LSU football team could get in if they become an SEC champion. Do I think that they could beat Georgia? No. Is it possible? Absolutely. And if they do, I think that there are people that are going to go, you know what? I think a 2-loss LSU football team could beat a 1-loss Clemson team, a 1-loss USC team. And we've seen it happen, right? During the BCS era, didn't a 2-loss LSU football team run roughshod all over an undefeated Ohio State football team? Didn't that happen? Okay, so let's put this in perspective. It is not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying it's not out of the realm of possibility. Okay? Start looking at TCU. There's a very good chance that they could slip up. It's already a foregone conclusion that TCU is going to play Kansas State again in the Big 12 championship. TCU was down 28-10 in that football game. And by the way, that was when K-State, they lost Adrian Martinez very early in that football game. Deuce Vaughn, one of the better running backs in all college football. We've heard the comparisons. It's spot on, very much like a Darren Sproles. It is a very fair comparison. The size, the athletic capability, the way he plays the game, absolutely very much like a Darren Sproles. Ended up being one of the best you could call slash men in the NFL. Running back, scat back, punt returns, kick returns, throw him in the slot, hand him the football, let him get a shot up the middle. I mean, I'm telling you, Deuce Vaughn can get things done. And, of course, you can't even look ahead of that game right now if you're TCU. You have been struggling, absolutely struggling. There are some big games this weekend that are going to tell us a lot about where the rest of the season is going to go. LSU is going to have Texas A&M before they face Georgia, even though A&M isn't a good look. Look, anybody can beat anybody at any time, right? So maybe they get caught slipping looking ahead. Who knows? So that'll be one to definitely keep an eye on. You know, again, LSU with a hard time against Florida not too long ago. Think about that. Kansas State's going to be taking on Kansas. Look, even though Kansas and Kansas State are both clearly out of it, Kansas State gets a win over KU. They head in to play TCU, and I got to tell you, I think that they look confident going into that game. Clemson is going to end up playing North Carolina in the ACC championship. That's a foregone conclusion. We'll see how that turns out. The Pac-12 is still undecided. And, of course, the Big Ten, still undecided. Michigan, Ohio State, obviously, I think one of those two eliminate each other for good. Despite whatever happens, if either one wins that game and then ends up losing the Big Ten championship game, I don't think necessarily that the team that lost versus, Ohio State and Michigan ends up being able to get in over that. It just doesn't happen. And to be honest with you, I think that they would take a Big Ten one-loss champion anyways over a one-loss Pac-12 champion. and over a one-loss ACC champion, given the fact that even though Michigan didn't play anybody, Ohio State, if they end up with one loss, and I mean by losing in the Big Ten championship game, they slip up, they would still get in simply because they played Notre Dame, and Notre Dame has been putting on a show against a couple of the teams that they really should have lost badly to. Instead, they end up playing very well against. Notre Dame, a very rough start to the season, but right now they're playing their best football. So we'll kind of see how that goes, obviously, when they play USC. But again, I think it's going to be pretty simple tonight. The four teams that are going to be there: TCU, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia. The order may change, but I doubt it. I don't see where they would say, anything is going to really move around. I just don't see that at this juncture. All right, moving on. And I mean, I am going to spend very little time on this. Antonio Brown allegedly puts up a Snapchat it's a Photoshop of Giselle naked and all. Dude, just... Look, man, I don't know who the hell's around this guy, but I'll tell you what, he goes on a podcast and says that he's not doing anything wrong, and it's, he's just, and you could tell he's frustrated. Like, he doesn't want to have to answer any of these tough questions. Of course, then again, I felt like he was being cut off a lot, but regardless of that, I just look at Antonio Brown and I just, bro, like, really? And he's taking shots at Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's like an easy enough target as it is right now with everything that's been going on. So I just don't get it, man. The dude that looked out for you, bro, and he put up this alleged conversation that was happening and nobody could tell where it came from. Antonio Brown tried to present it as somebody that he was writing to. I don't know. There's a lot of different opinions out there on who it was coming from iPhone users, etc. I don't use iPhone. I never have. I never will. What I do know is that with the Droid, and this is usually the case in anything, when anything appears on the left, it's coming in. When it's going out, it appears on the right. So, I don't know what the hell. It says too, you can't really tell. He screenshotted it very meticulously. So, I don't know, man. What I do know is if anybody tries to correct him, no, man, you're all crazy and you're all wrong. And it's just like all publicity stunts and crap to try and generate money or whatever the hell is going on. And I just, stop it. Stop it, bro. This dude's your homie, man. It's your homie. It's your boy. It's your road dog. He looked out for you when nobody else would. Why are you doing him like that? I just don't get it. If one of my homies picked me up right now and said, yo, bro, man, come on, I got you. Man, that's my dog, man. You forget that. Some people's kids, man, I'm telling you what. Just stop already. Stop. Who cares anymore, man? Seriously. Little NBA here. Man, I'm telling you what, the Warriors. You want to talk about from great to good to bad. They got dusted by the Pels. That thing was an ugly nightmare. I'm not sure that I remember too many games where Golden State has lost like this, man. I can't say that I do. I can't remember ever waking up at any time and seeing Golden State losing, like, what was it, 128 to 83 or something? I mean, boy, I tell you what. And the Pels look okay. They do. Zion trying to get in rhythm. Ingram, all those guys. Jordan Poole led the team in points with 26 in that game. He led the Warriors. I'm telling you what, man, basketball is kind of getting that NFL feel, man, where it's getting a little weird. It's getting chippy. We don't know what the hell's going on. I've talked about Brooklyn being bad, but, they've come on and won 5 out of their last 6 with Jacques Vaughn, right? They were 3-8, now they're 8-9, right? Something spectacular could happen there. I mean, it's early enough in the season, but, boy, I got to tell you what, that wasn't a good look for Golden State at all, man. That's a bad day, bro. That's a real bad day. And look, I know a couple years ago, Golden State not so good, but this is that Phoenix Suns game may have been a little bit more telling than what we thought. It may have been a little bit more telling what we thought, even though I still chuckle. Klay Thompson, 4 rings. Man alive. Show up and show out. I ain't mad at you, bro. Not at all. Not for that one, anyway. Whew. Show up and show out. 4 rings. Yeah, that's going to stay good all season. I promise you, every time they play each other, that's going to be a fun one. Matter of fact, that's going to be a great one. A great one. Legitimate, man. All right. I think that's all I got to say really about that. NFL this weekend. Nobody gets a week off. It's going to be all football all weekend. If you are a football fan, this is the weekend for you, man. Figure out a way to stay home. I'll tell you that. The NFL this week could be a lot of fun. Could be a lot of fun. Going into this week, a couple of notable games I like. The Bills are going to be back in Detroit to play the Lions this time. So I think that's going to end up being a pretty notable football game. The Cowboys and the Giants, obviously, everybody's going to be looking at that football game on Thanksgiving Day. Supremacy, right now, second place in the NFC East is not a bad place to be. I'll tell you that much. Especially the way the playoffs are set up now in the NFL. I got to tell you, the NFC East second place is not a bad thing. That's going to be a huge game coming up. Giants and Cowboys. We're going to be talking about that as the week goes along. Vikings and Patriots. That's going to be a huge one. We'll be discussing that as the week goes along. Titans and Bengals, I think, is going to be a huge one. Titans, rough start to the season. They've done just enough to come on as the season has progressed. The Jets look to try and get back on track. Denver's done. They're playing Carolina. I don't think anybody really gives a damn about that game, if I'm being honest with you. I'm so over it as a Broncos fan. I'm just over it. The loss in OT to the Raiders, bro. The Raiders. Are you kidding me right now? Josh McDaniel couldn't head coach his way out of a box, out of a shoebox. Whatever, man. 2 of the 3 Raiders wins this year are against the Broncos. That tells you how bad Denver is. It really does. But I think those are the notable games. The Giants, Cowboys, obviously, Patriots, Vikings, and Titans, Bengals. Seeding in the playoffs in terms of the Titans, Bengals. That's what's going to be important. We're going to be looking at those games as the week progresses. We're going to be discussing what the keys to victory for both teams are. And obviously, we're going to be doing that with some of the other teams as well. But again, quick recap here. CFP coming out tonight. I think, again, I don't know that necessarily anything is going to change in terms of the order of the football teams. Again, TCU and Michigan, even Ohio State really just kind of skating by. Georgia continues to be who they are. Wasn't their best game, but, they were up 16-0 at one point in that game against Kentucky, if I remember right. So, the defense continuing to do what it does. I've told people for the longest time, if the offense isn't getting it done, the defense can do it. If the defense isn't getting it done, the offense can usually kick into gear. Special teams, they're pretty good as well. And on offense, they can run the ball, throw the football, the complete football team in Georgia. And as I've stated, I just don't see anybody out there that can beat them. Flies in the ointment, so to speak here. Obviously, you've got Clemson. I don't think that they get in, though, because their out-of-conference schedule was so weak, even with one loss. Ohio State and Michigan, it could go either way. But if, a one-loss Michigan team, if they beat Ohio State, which I don't think is going to happen, they go into the Big Ten championship, they get beat. A one-loss Michigan team's not going to get in, not with playing the out-of-schedule conference that they did. TCU's also going to need to go undefeated. They are, again, Tarkenton struggled with SMU. They have to go undefeated, win the Big 12 championship in order to be able to stay where they are in the CFP. It is conceivable that a 2-loss LSU football team could get in. I'm not saying that it is. if they could figure out a way, win this weekend against Texas A&M and then get a win over Georgia in the SEC championship game, then it's very conceivable. And again, a 2-loss LSU team, if I remember correctly, beat Ohio State during the BCS era. And outside looking in is USC. 1 loss. They've got Notre Dame coming up this weekend. And then, of course, they have the Pac-12 championship, which they still don't know who they're going to play in that game yet. It hasn't been decided. The Big Ten hasn't been decided, so we don't know who's going to be in that championship game. But I just, again, USC, the way that they've struggled against certain football teams and, didn't look the best against UCLA. They've been finding ways to win, but them like a TCU, just all the comebacks and, struggling with certain teams. I just look at it and I go, I just don't think they can get it done. Really don't. Even if they survive with only 1 loss, everything else has to work out perfectly in their favor for them. Everything else. LSU has to lose, whether it's against A&M or in the SEC championship game. That's got to happen. I think Clemson needs to lose another football game just because Dabo Swinney has the benefit of having been there before and been successful, whereas Lincoln Riley has been there before but has been very unsuccessful in the college football playoffs. So there's that. And that's, of course, obviously in terms of the coaching for both football teams. And, TCU, they have to go undefeated because of their out-of-conference schedule. And they have to be a Big 12 champion. But if they lose, that's the window. That's the window right there. If LSU and TCU lose at some point, that's the window for Clemson and for USC. USC's got to get a dominating win over Notre Dame in order to be able to looked at and recognized because of the way Ohio State beat them. But Notre Dame since then wins over Syracuse and Clemson. Even though the Syracuse game really at this point isn't a big one, the Clemson game certainly is. USC's got to win that game and win it big, and then they got to win a Pac-12 championship, I think, in order to get in. That's what needs to happen, all right? Other than that, I don't see either USC or Clemson being favored over a 2-loss LSU football team, period. All right, everybody. I am Drew Duncan. This is the Sync 57 Sports Show. For Sports Live 365.7, simply tell your device to play Drew Duncan, Sync 57 on Spreaker, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Deezer, etc. We are wherever you're listening to podcasts. And as always, stay safe. Take care of yourselves.